Today, I'm sharing with you a book called Tools of Titans. The subtitle of the book is Tactics, Routines, and Habits of Billionaires, Icons, and World-Class Performers. From the title alone, you can tell that this book talks about the methodologies of successful people. Published in December 2016, it was met with widespread acclaim. The book's author is Tim Ferriss, a best-selling author, serial entrepreneur, and angel investor. We recommend this book to you because it's highly practical. It straightforwardly tells you the strategies that successful people use in their work and lives, inspiring you to live more wisely. Ferriss interviewed about 100 to 200 celebrities across various fields, then compiled these interviews into this book. However, given that the book is over 700 pages long and features so many people, we've selected only a few of the most inspiring ones to share with you. The first person is comic creator Scott Adams, who tells you not to pursue specific goals, but to develop a system. Adams' Dilbert comic series is simultaneously featured in 2,000 newspapers across 65 countries and 25 languages. Initially, Adams was a white-collar office worker, and when he first started drawing the Dilbert comics, he had to get up at 4 a.m. every day to draw because of his job. How did he manage to persist and achieve such success today? Adams shares his 3 most valuable pieces of advice. Establish a system instead of setting a goal. Adams worked while painting and writing on the side, which brought him very little financial reward, only about 5% of his salary, and had almost no impact on his life. His then-girlfriend asked why he did it, and he couldn't answer. Looking back now, Adams explains that what he was doing wasn't to achieve a specific goal, but to develop a system. A goal is something you achieve to get a reward, but if you fail, it's all in vain. Adams' system is a continuously evolving entity, either a skill or a relationship, such as a marital relationship. For the sake of this system, you can undertake various projects or cultivate certain habits. What matters is not the success or failure of a specific event, but developing the system. Adams' blogging is a system. The income and readership of any specific article aren't important. What matters is whether this system can keep growing. He has no specific goals for his blog, which is characteristic of a system. Adams did 2 things to develop this system: regularly writing and treating the blog as a research platform to test various writing techniques. For example, Adams experimented with different topics to see which were popular among readers. He also tried different tones, like angry, humorous, and critical, to see which resonated most. Over time, as Adams wrote more and more, his writing system grew. Later, when the Wall Street Journal heard about his blog, they invited him to start a column. Adams immediately became popular because he had developed a mature writing system and knew how to write. Adams said he knew the blog would bring many possibilities, but had no specific goals. He hadn't planned to write for the Wall Street Journal. Once you have a system, things happen naturally. Inspiration depends more on the body than the mind. Once your writing skills are mature, the concern isn't how to write, but what to write. To keep his column updated frequently, Adams needed many ideas. How did he get them? Adams' morning routine is entirely fixed. Even his breakfast is the same daily. The essence of this routine is to empty the brain first, then fill it with new information. Emptying the brain means throwing away yesterday's problems after breakfast and clearing space for new information. He then turns on his computer, reads the news, and browses articles to understand the current world, seeking material and inspiration for his next comic or column. The key question is how to judge which information is useful material. Adams says not to trust the brain but the body, because the brain overthinks while the body reacts naturally. He observes his bodily reactions. Does this material make him laugh? Does adrenaline surge? Does he experience strong emotional fluctuations? That means it's good material. If your body reacts strongly to some information, others will likely care about it too. Develop multiple proficient skills. Adams says there are two paths to achieving outstanding results. First, you can become the world's best in a particular skill, but this is very difficult and rare. The second path is to master two skills and reach the top 25% in each, which is much easier. Few people have two top 25% skills, and combining these skills can lead to remarkable achievements. For example, Adams isn't the world's best cartoonist but ranks in the top 25%. His humor writing skill isn't the best either, but also ranks in the top 25%. He combined these two skills to create Dilbert. Additionally, he has a third skill, years of office work that made him very knowledgeable about office politics, which happens to be Dilbert's theme. The combination of these three powerful skills produces a unique chemistry. Adams advises young people to aim for the top 25% in their preferred field and add one or two more fields. If you're unsure what to add, Adams recommends practicing public speaking. He says that anyone can become a good speaker through practice. If you're a top 25% programmer in a company with many other top 25% programmers, but you're also a top 25% public speaker, you naturally lead others. Mark Anderson also has similar advice, suggesting students get degrees in two different disciplines. The farther apart, the better. For example, engineering and an MBA, law and an MBA, or physics and economics. Next, we'll discuss the second person, former U.S. Navy SEAL Commander Jocko Willink, who emphasizes that true freedom is discipline and that you should have extreme ownership over your world. Willink served in the SEALs for 20 years, fought in Iraq, then trained all the SEALs on the West Coast. After retiring, he co-founded a consulting firm teaching military leadership and management skills to businesses. In 2015, he published a book called Extreme Ownership: How U.S. Navy SEALs Lead and Win, which topped the New York Times bestseller list. Willink's methodology is based on three key experiences. Discipline equals freedom. Most of us live as warriors, fighting in our work and study daily, striving for victory. This spirit is admirable, but warrior and battle are primarily metaphors since our work and study don't involve real bloodshed, and mistakes don't usually cost lives. Sometimes, we impose pressure on ourselves, like setting up rehearsals, to satisfy the boss. But what about someone who's truly been to the battlefield and faced a real enemy, where one wrong decision could mean the death of comrades? What kind of person would they be? There's an example that answers this question. For the book's interview, Ferriss invited Willink to his house, where he stayed for a night. At 8 a.m. the next day, Ferriss's girlfriend woke him up, saying Willink had been awake for 5 hours reading and she didn't know how to host him. Though it wasn't actually 5 hours, Willink's routine is to wake up at 4:45 a.m. daily. Even after retiring, he maintains SEAL discipline and can do 76 push-ups in a row. Ferriss asked Willink why he had to wake up early, and Willink said it made him feel like he had beaten the enemy. Willink always believes there's an enemy somewhere in the world, armed with a rifle and grenade, ready to face him. Although he is no longer in the military and will never return to the battlefield, he always feels like he'll one day confront an enemy. Each morning when he wakes up, he asks himself what he can do to prepare for that moment. Then he gets up. Willink's spirit has inspired many Americans. A 4:45 wake-up club has now formed on Twitter. Early rising is also a sign of discipline. Willink's motto is discipline equals freedom. To gain true freedom, you must set some restrictions for yourself. The freedom we usually talk about, like getting whatever you want and doing whatever you want, has two drawbacks and isn't true freedom. One is the paradox of choice. With too many options, you're easily overwhelmed and don't know what to choose, lowering happiness. The other drawback is decision fatigue. A theory suggests that every decision depletes some willpower, and after choosing for a while, you're mentally and physically exhausted. Modern society's prevalence of depression may partly stem from too much freedom. On the surface, you can do anything, But in reality, nothing is enjoyable or meaningful, much like a video game with cheat codes where endless emptiness follows short-lived fun. But if you're highly disciplined, facing various constraints and routines, you always know what to do, gaining a sense of autonomy. True freedom, like financial freedom, time freedom, and freedom from disease and poverty, requires discipline. Extreme ownership. Before significant operations, the SEAL's rear admiral would gather all commanders to make requests. One would ask for more helicopters, another for new boots suitable for colder weather, and another for Wi-Fi signals to keep troops in touch. The admiral approved all requests. A proud moment for Willink was when the admiral asked him if he had any requests, and Willink replied, "We're good, sir." He didn't make any requests. Willink explains this logic. I have extreme ownership of my world. If my team has a problem, I'll solve it myself. I won't complain to my superiors. Conversely, if I ask for something one day, my superiors will understand it's truly needed. Willink says people often complain about a lack of support from their superiors, but it's their fault for not educating or influencing their superiors correctly or making them understand why they need support. One must take responsibility. This is extreme ownership. Enhance leadership with humility. What makes a good commander? Willink's answer is humility. When Willink returned to train the West Coast SEALs, he deliberately used harsh environments and tasks to push them to their limits and beyond. One key assessment was how the commanders reacted, and those who couldn't handle it were eliminated. Most commanders weren't eliminated due to lack of military skills or fitness, but because of weak leadership, especially humility. Here, humility doesn't mean showing excessive respect to superiors, but being able to listen to others, having an open mind, and always learning. Training tasks are intentionally set up for the teams to fail. Humble commanders take responsibility first. They say, I lost. I couldn't control it. Let's review to see where I went wrong. When you point out their shortcomings, they immediately note them down. In contrast, arrogant commanders return and blame others, convinced they did nothing wrong, thinking they know everything while failing to conduct honest self-assessments. How does Willink self-assess? He observes himself from a third-person perspective. While working, he steps outside his body and asks, Am I angry? Am I emotional? Am I overreacting? This is akin to the saying, the observer is clear, but the participant is confused, essentially providing himself with real-time feedback. Achieving this is tough, requiring maintaining a calm voice to remind oneself, even when fully committed. This is humility's highest level. Finally, we come to the third person, Chris Sacca, who is one of Silicon Valley's most successful venture capitalists, reportedly worth over $1 billion. Sacca once worked as a department manager at Google and made several brilliant investments in Twitter, Uber, Instagram, and Kickstarter. He has even appeared on the cover of Forbes magazine. Sacca, as described in Ferriss's book, is a person with a unique personality. For example, as a venture capitalist, he's perceived as a Silicon Valley person since most of his investments are in Silicon Valley, yet he doesn't live there, preferring to reside in the Californian mountains. Why doesn't Sacca live at the heart of innovation? Because he's an aggressive person. Sacca says the challenges you face in life can be divided into two categories. One is defense, challenges given to you by others. Others assign you tasks, and completing them brings a sense of achievement, but they hold the initiative. The other category is offense, where you do what you want, holding the initiative. For example, your email inbox is essentially your defensive to-do list, with every email representing something others want you to do. If you're constantly dictated by your inbox, you're always on defense. Sacca wants to be on offense, so in 2007, he moved from San Francisco, just 30 minutes from Silicon Valley, to the mountains. Sacca no longer wanted endless meetings. In the mountains, he could focus on things he wanted to do. learn new stuff, and build truly valuable long-term relationships. He lives in a ski resort with beautiful scenery and often invites business partners over for weekends, which they're happy to join, building deeper relationships. These deep, long-term personal relationships were critical to Saka's successful investments in Twitter and Uber. So, venture capitalists must know many people, but Saka's feature is that he's no longer passively meeting many people, but proactively forming higher-level relationships with a select few. The keyword here is proactive. Offense means acting proactively. In the early days, Saka was proactive too. He knew venture capitalists needed a lot of knowledge and had to understand various industries. But if you have a formal job, your work limits your exposure, so you must take the initiative. Back in his Google days, Saka tried to attend all major meetings, even between founders, whether invited or not. Sometimes people were too embarrassed to say anything. Other times they'd ask why he was there, and Saka would say, "I'm here to take notes." He'd then share his notes with attendees. You might ask how one develops the high emotional intelligence to be so proactive. The book details many of Saka's childhood stories. In fact, America's social mobility is now quite rigid, even in the internet industry. Most founders don't come from lower-income families, and Saka's family was somewhat unusual, with capable parents. U.S. school summer vacations last over 2 months, and while poorer children idle around, those from wealthier families attend various training programs and camps. At Saka's home, the rule was to intern every summer. Internships had 2 stages, which Saka called the sweet and sour summer. Starting with the sweet part, Saka's father had a friend who was also Saka's godfather. This godfather had a son, making him Saka's godbrother. This godbrother worked for interest groups lobbying Congress. At age 12, Saka's intern job was to follow this godbrother around on lobbying trips, and he played a fairly serious role in the lobbying process. Before each lobbying trip, Saka would go over the plan details with his godbrother and summarize the lobbying objectives into a single page to clarify the plan. He'd then accompany his godbrother to meet politicians, listening while taking notes. At 12 years old, Saka had already seen all sorts of faces in Washington. He says the internship taught him 3 things: gaining broad insights, building strong self-confidence, and most importantly, by summarizing talking points, honing strong storytelling skills. The sour part of the summer was returning home, where his father arranged for him to work as a laborer at a construction site run by a friend. His father insisted that the boss assign him the dirtiest and hardest jobs, like spreading manure in people's yards. If he didn't do well, his co-workers would even beat him up. While such tough work may build character, Saka jokes that his father arranged the internships as a warning. If you don't land a high-end lobbying job, you'll end up in construction. These varied life experiences shaped Saka's extraordinary emotional intelligence. We know that some Silicon Valley figures are known for wearing iconic clothing. For instance, Jobs always wore a black turtleneck for keynotes, and Zuckerberg typically wears a t-shirt. Saka's signature outfit is an embroidered denim jacket. Why this particular look? He once bought it at an airport for a speech, and it received great feedback. He then bought out half the store's stock of the same jacket and now wears it for any formal occasion. The jacket gave the media a recognizable image, which is the best way to gain exposure without harming oneself. Why not? Saka advises young people to always be genuine, never mimic anyone, and always be their most authentic selves without apology. If your authentic self is quirky, then embrace it. Another figure in Tools of Titans, Glenn Beck, mentioned a similar idea. Beck is a popular American show host who once revealed something private on the radio and feared his career was over, but the audience actually welcomed it. The logic is that in a world where many people speak from prepared scripts, people crave genuine voices. Being truly unique can actually be a selling point. Saka's final advice is to be good at storytelling. Venture capitalists don't make decisions based on rational analysis of your numbers and charts, but by hearing your story. If they're moved by it, they'll invest in your project. If you see an investor repeatedly checking your data, they aren't calculating but looking for reasons to believe in your story. This concludes Tools of Titans. Let's recap. The three outstanding figures in this book teach us: don't pursue specific goals, but develop a system. True freedom is discipline and extreme ownership over your world. And life's challenges are endless. So prioritize offensive challenges. You can click the description below the video to find the link. And you can also share this interpretation with your friends. If you like the content of Daily Book Dive, click the subscribe button to stay updated. Your encouragement helps us continue bringing book essence to our community. Congratulations, you finished another book.